All right, my people, y'all good? I'm just checking.
Yep.
Krate, you good, Mike guy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, come up a little bit on your volume.
That better? I wasn't in the mic.
Oh yeah, there we go. All right, going back on mute. What's up, my people? My people that are tuned in. We're gonna start momentarily. Hit us up in the chat. Let us know where you at, where you representing, who you are. Thank you for coming through. Yep. All right, my people. All right, my people. We finna get this thing going. As soon as I get my lovely notes in action. All right, bada bing, bada bing, bada bing. Oh, there's me. What's happening, my people? Is Mr. LP. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Listen, we having these monthly conversations about different topics dealing in regards to cultural things. There will be some fun things, but very informative and just some conversations with some of my neighbors. So my name is Mr. Al Pete with the MPN Network, founder and all that good stuff. Your cool neighbor, hip hop artist, DJ, journalist, podcaster, all that great stuff. So again, thank you all for coming through. And today we're going to be talking about microaggressions in the workplace. So let me bring my people on. Let's go to the other scene. There go my people, my beautiful folks in the house. Do I need to do some sound effects? We got to break the monotony. Let's see.
Pew, 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 pew.
Hold on, let me see. Here we go.
My whole real program, so I ain't no help.
So corny, but nevertheless.
Got a room full of DJs and we don't got no sound effects or nothing.
Hold on.
There you go.
Now we in business.
A room full of DJs, and yes, somebody on this call gonna have the sound effect action going on, but
I don't know. I feel
nevertheless,
like Krate is ready. I feel like he got a whole setup over there. So I feel like you need to be in charge of the sound effects and the atmosphere.
he is set up over there. He is like fully set up. He ain't playing around at all.
Nah, this is all green screen. I just got a green box in front of me, and none
I'm
of this is real.
tired.
No, it's like I got the gear here, but my laptop's in the other room, so I don't even have like my Serato plugged in or nothing. You see these lights ain't colored or nothing.
You're right.
It's
It's not
on.
activated.
Well, listen, I appreciate both of y'all coming through to have this conversation. First off, we have DJ EnerJi. So say hello to the people. She is multifaceted with everything. She's a DJ. She's my sister, a dope person. Just a lot, and I'm kind of holding off on it because just to protect the innocent, but nevertheless, she is a dope person. She is a very dope person. So say hello to the people, EnerJi.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Pete. Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited for this conversation. As he said, I am EnerJi. You can find me on the socials at IAMENERJI, as it's there on the screen. And yeah, I'm here and ready for having this conversation. I'm looking forward to it, to dive into the microaggressions, because we definitely experience them on a daily basis.
Oh
So we might as
man,
well talk about it.
indeed. And next up, we have my brother, Krate Digga, excellent DJ from Ohio, just a dope person all around. Met him last year. Last year we met in the clubhouse streets.
It might have been like late 2021. If it wasn't late 2021, it was definitely early 2022.
Okay, cool. But nevertheless, my guy is on here, DJ Krate Digga. Let the people know what's up. Tell them how you doing. How you feeling?
Good people. I'm doing well. Hopefully, y'all are as well. I'm DJ Krate Digga, broadcasting live from the heart of the Midwest, Columbus, Ohio. Catch me all things online, www.kratedigga.com. But I am at Krate Digga on Instagram, if that's your social media of choice.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. Well, listen, we are not gonna prolong everything. Let me see. Let me let some comments on the thing first. Oh, it says let's go. Okay, cool. Let's go. Some people are ready to to have these conversations. Good dealing, man. So,
We are
like
ready to talk microaggressions.
right. Definitely ready to talk microaggression. So, to give y'all a background story, so I'm currently getting my master's degree in communication management. Shouts out to University of North Florida. I am an Osprey in that thing. Jesus, boy, Jesus, praise all of them, boy. That research is crazy. So, in my class, we foundations of communication management. We had to pick a topic that we felt that we wanted to speak on and stuff that we want to. He wants to prepare us for the real world when we get out of these classes and actually get into these buildings or whatnot. So he wanted us to pick a topic, something that we find kind of close to us or whatnot, or something that we really want to examine and make sure that everything, find the methods and the techniques about it, or whatever. So my choice was microaggressions in the workplace, and it was funny because I had watched House Party 2, and House Party 2, it was a part on there where Kid was getting his books, and the lady that at the register was like, where she was like, I'm ready to go home, for a vacation or whatever. This is a college setting. And he was like, well, where's home? China, Asia. And then they had the little Asian music in the background. And then he was like, well, she was like, no, I'm from Texas. And it was like, where's your home? Africa. And then she started doing the like, like the the African drums or whatever. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, cool. Let me tie this in. And then it's another movie called Crash that I thought was like very, very great. I don't know if y'all familiar with it, but it was a star-studded action movie, but it was a whole bunch of microaggressions in there. Stuff. It was very subtle things too. And I think when a lot of people think about it, I think the first thing they think about is like black and white. but there are other types of microaggressions that happen. So nevertheless, I wrote a paper on it, had to do a presentation on it, but I was like, instead of me just writing the paper, I really wanted to have this like conversation with some of my neighbors and really kind of exercise me being on a platform to be able to handle this conversation. So um, this is one of the monthly ones that we're having. And to give a disclaimer, like this is just, you know, a general conversation. This is not intended for anyone or anybody else. So yeah, this is not intended for that. But I do feel like we need to have these conversations, and hopefully somebody will take something away from it and apply it, regardless if you are the person that's giving the microaggressions or the person that's receiving it. So it's just a very easy conversation to have. All right. So real quick, I want to give the definition that I have of microaggression, but I want to start off with the first question about what do what do you both think microaggression is? So the answer that I have is a noun. It's a term used for commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, or environmental slights, where intentional or unintentional that communication hostile, derogatory, or negative attitudes towards cultural marginalized groups. So that's the definition that I had. That was my abstract. If you people that write papers, that was my abstract introduction and whatnot. So I'm going to turn the floor over to EnerJi first. Want to get her definition of microaggression. Let me know what you think about it. What is your definition of it?
I mean, I definitely agree with the, actual dictionary version or explanation of what a microaggression is. But something that really sticks out to me when you think about microaggressions is the subtlety of it all. They're very difficult to pinpoint, they're very difficult to define, but you know it when you feel it. And that's what makes them so challenging to navigate.
All right, Krate Digga, what you think, brother? What's your definition of it?
Yeah, so I agree, that the dictionary definition is very thorough. um, I sometimes find myself debating and or vacillating between, was that like a passive aggressive thing or was that a
Mhm.
microaggression? And then sometimes I'm not sure if microaggressions are this accidental, unaware thing. I don't think you have to be a hardcore racist or a hardcore sexist or a hardcore homophobe or et cetera, et cetera. Um, but at the same time, I'm not sure that all microaggressions are so like good natured or so accidental, the way the dictionary definition seems to imply. So, that
Right.
those are my initial thoughts on it.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So, um, the next part of my paper, and again, people, I'm going to be referencing my paper because just it's for reference for sure. But where these things, so of course, when you think about papers, I kind of start off with the who, what, where, when, why, how, the KISS, keep it simple, stupid, those type of things. I think about those those when I start writing my paper. So I think about where in the workplace or outside the workplace do these things usually occur. And my professor asked me to ask that question to myself, like, is it prominent in this place? Is it prominent in that place? Or what industries it is? Do one of y'all have a question about that as far as, well, not question or a reply to that? Like, where would we mostly see these happening at in regards to the microaggressions?
Well, my thought is they happen everywhere. All I won't say all the time, but they happen everywhere. So for just one example, I could go to McDonald's, and for me, I'm not at work in that moment, but I may be dealing with someone behind the register who is at work. So for them, that microaggression is happening, or that instance is happening in their workplace, and for me, it's happening outside of my workplace or in my everyday life. So for example, if just as an example, if there's a person in front of me, they make their order, and they're finished, and I step up to the counter, and the person behind the counter just looks at me and waits for me to order, as opposed to saying, hey, welcome to McDonald's, how can I help you, or whatever. Just
Mhm.
I could see that as a microaggression because I just got done watching how you interacted with this previous customer, and when I step up, it's kind of like, yeah, what do you want, type of thing. So I could be tripping, It could be a passive aggressive, it could be a microaggression, and depending on where you look at it and how you look at it, from whose perspective we're standing, it allows it to be all of those things at one time, all of those different kind of environments or aspects all coming together at one time.
Mm-hmm. EnerJi, what you think?
I agree. I mean, you can experience microaggressions in any situation. That's kind of the nature of them. I mean, we're speaking specifically about microaggressions in the workplace, and that's definitely a place where I've experienced it a lot. But like Krate said, I mean, it can occur at any time in any place, and it the thing for me is it usually takes me off guard. I'm never usually ready for them, and so a lot of times that's what makes it difficult to navigate as well. Because by the time you realize that it's happened, it's already passed, and it's kind of like there's a lot of times where I feel compelled to address it, but then in addressing it or bringing it to light, it turns it into a different kind of situation. And then you have to decide, do I really want to make this a thing? Do I want to let it pass? Do I have to sacrifice how I might be feeling in this moment because I don't want to make it a thing? But at the same time, it's like, this is a thing that's happened and it's made me feel a certain type of way. So there's always that dilemma in deciding, am I going to deal with this now or am I going to let it slide? And unfortunately, most of the times with microaggressions, they are allowed to go by the wayside.
So that's interesting you say that, because that is a point that I was going. I mean, tap into, but we can tap into that now actually. So, it sounds like, I'm saying this from personal experience as well, but like the actual act happens, and then you probably be somewhere and you just like, was that? did that happen? Like what? Like it's like you be reflecting on your life, and it's almost
Yeah.
from.
Like, did that really just happen to me? Hold on a second. What the hell?
And it would be funny is the fact that it happens like, I mean, 24 hours later or something like that. It's something that you just kind of recall, like you just sit back and like, dang man, like, and then it just kind of slap you in the face, like, yo, did they just?
Like they got one up on you, and yeah,
Exactly,
like
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And I think too, a lot of times because you have that latent reaction to it, I think that's why when it, and I hope I'm not jumping ahead, Pete. Please let me know if
Nah,
I
go
am.
for
But
it, go for it.
I think a lot of times when they do happen, especially when you're keenly aware of it, when you're paying attention, when you know that it's going on and it happens in that real time, that's why sometimes you can have such a visceral response to it when it happens, and your reaction can feel like it's over the top if you decide to have one. That's why it's so delicate to navigate microaggressions, because it's like they need to be addressed, and it would be great if they didn't happen as often as they did, and if they were called out as often as they did, maybe they wouldn't happen as much. But it's almost like walking through a field of landmines and you don't know which ones are going to blow up in your face, or which ones are going to, not cause so much collateral damage, if that makes sense.
Nah, it makes perfect sense. So, Crate, since we on that part, one of the bullet points that I sent to y'all was some of the reasons why people don't even act on it, on microaggressions. I mean, I would be safe to say that one of the reasons is because you think about that time period, like, okay, did I let the time period go too far to say it, or would I be bringing up old stuff? Like what constitutes that? So I want to get your opinion on that part.
I think sometimes it's definitely, it happens and you're not fully aware of it, or you have to do whatever in hindsight. I think there's other times where it's kind of like EnerJi kind of referred to it in a different way. Like it happens, and while it is, usually a vocal thing, it happens in a space of kind of silence. It's not overt. It's not over the top. It's not necessarily somebody yelling or screaming at you or pushing down the steps, etc. It's kind of like
Mhm.
subtle and slight, and by you bringing attention to it, it then, even though you didn't start it, you're now like opening up, bringing, taking the cover off of it and allowing it to be seen. And it makes it almost look like you are initiating a thing as opposed to you responding to this thing. So I think
Correct.
once again, part of it is like it's kind of like when somebody walks by and whispers something rude in your ear. Like your response is then to turn and look at them and respond, and everybody's like, what, because they heard your voice and saw you,
Right.
but they, the preamble gets lost.
It
And then
gets lost.
a lot of times, even when it's less intentional, it's like, how do you tell someone, or explain to someone, or show like what you did was a microaggression and this is how it was a microaggression, but because they didn't have that intent, they're not able to even receive what you're saying. So because I didn't have ill intent towards you, everything that you're saying that is likely absolutely right, I can't receive it because I'm taking it as you're making it seem like I intended to do those things. And because I didn't intend to do those things, all of what you're saying is wrong. And it's very,
Right.
once again, it's very difficult to have those conversations with people, especially when we start to talk about, to the definition, when you're starting to have these culturally, um, a lot of times it's within cultures, but when you have these cross cultural conversations, when someone says something to you and in your culture space it means this, and theirs it means this, and so when you start to kind of cross cultures and deal with a lot of the different factors that make things microaggressions, you start to move within levels of conversation and understanding and communication styles and all those things, and it can get dicey, and especially if you're not in the right space to have those conversations, it can almost feel like it's becoming more of a thing than it originally was.
Good
And
stuff.
the,
Good.
the thing that's unfortunate about that, I'm sorry to cut you off, Pete, but I
No,
just
you
want to
good. Good. You
piggyback
good.
on what you said, is like when you draw attention to those microaggressions, then it puts you in a position where you almost become the aggressor. And that's when the problems arise because it's like you're making it a bigger deal than it needs to be. And then if you don't end up in a situation like that and you do decide to bring it to light and you want to have a conversation, let's be honest, a lot of times that work is very exhausting, especially when you're talking about the differences between, cultures, or the differences between, social classes, or race, anything that's super delicate. It's like, why do I have to do all of this work to let you know that what you did or said made me feel a certain type of way? I should just be able to say, hey, what you said made me feel a certain type of way. And if you, even if that was not your intention, you should be able to, the other person should be able to be like, oh, that was not my intention. However, I'm sorry for making you feel that way. And then if they, approach it a certain type of way, can you explain to me what it was that happened? Because I feel like there's always room for growth.
Hmm.
There's room for improvement.
Absolutely.
But more often than not, that is not the situation that you find yourself in. You find yourself in a situation where it's like, now I've become the aggressor. I'm the angry blank blank. I'm the angry black woman in the situation. Let's call it what it is. And now it's a whole thing where you could have just left me the hell alone and not said whatever you said, or made me feel the way that you made me feel. Because 9 times out of 10, I feel like people know, at least have an idea that, even if it's like from the definition, right? They use the word slight. It's like you understand that there's something here, and you could have just said nothing, but you chose to say something, and now we're here in this awkward ass situation, and you want to act like you don't know what we're talking about, and now we're veering into gaslighting, and it becomes a whole different situation.
Right. Right. So since we since you mentioned slight, so one of the things that I in my paper is I might butcher his name. It is Delrod Wing Su, a professor at Columbia University. So he broke down like the types of microaggression. So you have micro invalidation, which is kind of like the unconscious, like the subtle type of stuff. Then you have micro insult, which is kind of like in the middle. And then you have the micro assault, which is like deliberate. So he broke those down. And I thought that was pretty interesting that he broke those down, like how some people see it. Well, depending on the act, kind of determines if it's like a small version or like the big version. So it was just funny because micro, we think about micro, we thinking of small. But when he mentioned micro assault, it was just like, okay. So then he broke down a lot of examples, excuse me, a lot of examples of that. So um I don't know, I just, when you mentioned slight, I wanted to point that out because when was in my studies, I found it pretty interesting that it was broken down like that. Because of course we think macro and then micro. So the fact that he broke down micro, and micro is still like effective depending on the act, is like crazy. On top of the fact that a lot of the microaggressions that I've experienced or seen people do, it's, to me, I just feel like it's kind of deliberate versus it being kind of subtle, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you happen to have any? I know that I have a bad habit of doing this with you, Pete. Whenever we get on podcast, I'll be asking you questions. But do you have any examples of the three types of microaggressions that you could share? Because I've never heard them broken down that way before. I think that would be
So
interesting.
the types of microaggression. So my example, and I wish I could play the video, but I'll put it in the notes. But it's from the Crash clip when Lorenz Tate and Ludacris was coming out of the restaurant, and it was
Mm-hmm.
talking about like uh the server didn't come and serve us. The reason why, because we looked like we was some gangsters and we was black and all this other stuff. And then Lorenz came back and said, well, how do you know that she was thinking that way? And then
Mm-hmm.
Ludacris went into like this basically micro assault, like, well, I got dreads and we black and we got these big clothes and we in a sea full of, what I'm saying, Caucasians and all this other stuff. So that was like the micro assaults of it. And what got deeper was the fact that he mentioned about women. And he was
Mm-hmm.
like, women don't think that women already think that men ain't crap anyway. And so when he said that, that was like a really defined definition of like micro assault, because he already had assumptions
Basically
that.
making exactly, that's what I was going to say, basically making a lot of assumptions based on, and it's interesting because I don't remember Crash in great detail, but I did see it and I do remember it being a great film, and I kind of remember that scene. And it's interesting because the micro assault, he's actually turning it on himself,
Mm-hmm.
which is ironic.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
granted, yes, they experienced some sort of aggression, and that was real. But then to internalize it takes it to an even deeper level. I find that fascinating.
Yeah. And they mentioned that in the journal that I was studying. It was like he's kind of turning this stuff on himself, but depending on the situation or whatever, or the people that's saying it, some people would notice it and some people wouldn't notice it. Because at the end of it, they end up pulling the gun. Well, it was like a couple that walked by, and the couple was like, she grabbed his arm, a little bit tighter because they walked past some black folks, and it was
Hmm.
like, do you think they think we gonna harm him? And he was like, I don't know. And then next thing you know, he robs him. So it was like, yeah. Nevertheless, if y'all could go see Crash, it was like a very very great movie. It should be on my top 5, but it's not. But it's such a great movie and the explanation of what we're talking about today, microaggressions. Craig, you got some thoughts over there.
Now I'm listening, and I am recalling as best as I can sections of Crash. I do recall the movie for the most part. I don't remember every single part, and of course we know when it comes to movies and how creative license works and all that. But I think it's important to state and or share that one thing about, when you reference that example of Ludacris and Lorenz Tate in that scene, it's like he understood, regardless of whether he was a quote unquote good guy or a bad guy in the film, he understood the the social kind of engagement, the social structure of those aggressions. He understood them and also understood his experience and how it plays into that, and also knows, in part because he both suffers from those microaggressions being placed upon him, as well as he understands the stereotypical nature of them because he fits the profile of the person doing the things. So
Mm-hmm.
like in the second half of that scene, it's like, see, look. Basically he was saying, see, look, they look at us and they automatically assume that we are A, B, and C, and we're gonna do C, D, and E. And because we're A, B, and C, we now are about to do C, D, and E. Now I'm not saying they wrong, but they wrong for assuming, but not wrong for being right. So it's kind of like just that circular nature of
Mm-hmm.
the writing to that scene specifically is interesting and it's great. But like when we
Hmm.
bring it back to like the everyday nature of it, most times it doesn't have that back end that allows, and whether this was intentional or not, I won't speak to, but it that the back end of that scene kind of allows a space for and okays the conduct of those microaggressions. It's like,
Right.
see,
Hmm.
she had a right to feel scared
Yeah.
because they in the end did the shit that she was scared they was going to do. So it was okay to profile them because the profiling was okay. The profiling was legit. they were right in the end. But in most everyday engagements of microaggressions, they're not based on like that backwards time frame of I did something wrong to you, which then allows your preemptive response to be okay. It is, just as one other realistic example, as a DJ, I often go into places, and when I see other people and how their assumed role in that space is set out without asking them or knowing anything about them. So there's plenty of times where I'm in the studio and people come in, and the women that come into the studio, the assumption first is, who are they there to see? Not what are they there to do. Like it's almost assumed that they couldn't be there for any professional nature. They couldn't be the mixing engineer. They couldn't be the producer. They
Right.
may be there the singer, but they got to be just some girl who's here with one of these rappers or whatever. As opposed, that's a microaggressive, among other things. That's microaggressive thought there, to just assume that their presence can't be the reason that the men are there, professional or otherwise. So that's just one example as a DJ that I see these microaggressions play out, regardless of the intent or lack therein. But once again, I think the Crash movie is a great example of how those all kind of conflate in the story, but like the day in day out nature of them, how we all engage them, is very real and doesn't have that kind of back end of the story that makes it okay to think this way or okay to behave this way.
Right. And yeah. So we mentioned DJing. So I mean, do we want to go down that rabbit hole a tad? That's cool.
Let's talk about it.
All right,
Because
cool. So
what Krate just said, I mean, I as a woman DJ have been on the other side of those microaggressions, and it's just, I mean, I feel like that's just part of being a woman, period, or being somebody who presents in a feminine way, because that's, I'm all about non-binary and that sort of thing. However it is you want to identify, but we have to know. I mean, we go through life and all of us make assumptions. It's part of our survival. We are creatures that have to look at something and classify whether or not something is going to be safe, something is going to cause danger, something is going to have a good experience, bad experience. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's what we decide to do with that information and how we decide to move through the world that makes a difference. Is there something specific that you want to ask me about my experience with DJing, Pete, or do you want me to just kind of launch in? Because I have stories for days.
Well, I wanted to approach this, what I'm saying, with care, but I do feel like with all of us being DJs on here, I feel like we good to go, and I feel like Krate kind of opened the door. Not kind of. Krate kind of like.
He
Not
kicked the
kind
damn
of.
door
He
open.
kicked the door open.
I kicked in the door waving the 4-4. So I was willing to take those first shots, bringing the door down, and then if y'all want to follow me in, I was on my Leroy Jenkins coming in, and there wasn't nobody else prepared.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
so
I
energy, go
can
for it. Whatever you feel like you want to
I
say.
can testify. I mean, as far as being in spaces, I have been DJing consistently and professionally, I can call it that, for a little over 4 years now. And my experience in being a novice and navigating that and getting to a more professional space, those experiences are, they are what they are. But something that I experience often and very much and still to this day is, if I go somewhere, unless I'm literally setting my stuff up by myself, if there is a man anywhere in the vicinity, there are oftentimes people who assume that that person is the DJ, even if I am literally setting up my own equipment, sound equipment, board, whatever, plugging in cords, unwrapping stuff, unpacking stuff. It's like I have people that'll come up to me, and oftentimes my husband is with me helping me set stuff up, right? So they'll come up to us and they just assume that he's the DJ. They just assume that, or it's like, or they'll sit through an entire set of mine, and if my husband is there at the end of it, or if you've been there, Pete, helping me, or any one of my male friends are there, counterparts helping me, it's like they'll come up afterwards and be like, wow, so when are y'all going to be doing this again? And it's like, I literally stood here for 4 hours doing this shit by myself, and I still can't get that validation. I don't need it. I don't need it. But I'm like,
Yeah.
are you fucking serious right now? Like that's how that's how I want to react. But I know that if I have that response, the chances are I'm going to look like the crazy woman or the upset
Mm,
woman or the angry black woman, and then I have to navigate that. So as much as I hate it, a lot of times I just won't say anything, or I'll just smile and kind of I turn that microaggression on its ear and I become passive aggressive, and I'm like, no, we're not going to be back, but I will. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
Like, if you're going
mm.
to come at me like that, then I can throw it right back at you. And usually when you make people feel as awkward as they've made you feel, then they can write themselves. Very, very few times have I ended up in actual words with somebody. Thankfully, that doesn't happen. And I've been lucky enough to have good people around me, both men and women and otherwise, that, will have my back if shit goes left. But it's just crazy how something that simple can happen. I mean, all the time. Pretty much every single time I go somewhere to set up that they don't know me, something like that will happen. It's
Right.
crazy.
Yeah, it's very crazy, and it's very unfortunate, and it's definitely not fair. A question that popped up in my head: do you think people? I'm, I know the answer is yes, but I want y'all to elaborate. But like, do people? You think people look at our social medias and then come to us, in the event of, and be like, and throw that microaggression in there? So I give an example. So like for me, one of my biggest like pet peeve, not pet peeves, but like, everybody think I'm, I joke to you all the time about this energy, but everybody thinks I'm waving incense everywhere. Like they like, I'm the Mecca and the Soul Brother. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so it's that. But I think people look at social media or they see how I carry myself or whatever, and they're like, okay, well, Al is just this, hair wrap, he like Badu and Jill Scott, and and don't you forget it, Glenn Jones, da 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 da. Until I start busting their ass on some Trick Daddy and some Rick Ross. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like, oh, now he's the intent guy with Rick Ross around. But so I think people get that, and these people that have not seen me in person, so to say, so they probably looked at the social media, seen me my picture or whatever of that, and then that makes them develop the microaggressions. I mean, I guess indirectly because they don't know who they're talking to. So that's why I was
Mhm.
asking about y'all. Like, have y'all had that experience from social media where somebody's looked at your social media and been like, well, you can tell that somebody gave them microaggression because they looked at your social media or saw something online.
Well, so I'll say this in part because of the specific examples you laid out. I've been DJing since 1997. I started in undergrad, and when I left undergrad and was kind of rebuilding my name and brand as a DJ in a new city, even though it was my hometown, like when I left for college, I wasn't a DJ. When I came back, I was. So it's almost like I was a totally different person.
Mhm.
A lot of the events that I was doing were those poetry nights, were those neo soul, lounge, uh, events. So a lot of people came to know the Krate Digga brand wrapped in that genre or that space of the music. And a lot of people told themselves and would say to me both directly and indirectly, basically that as if that's the only music I knew, without knowing anything about my history, learning the DJ and the artists that I had performed with in undergrad, nor about all the other things that I was doing based on just their space of engagement. Whether it was what they saw, this is a little earlier in the social media game, pre Facebook, give or take, but
Yeah.
MySpace, Black Planet, all those things that were happening then, like their one engagement point was now the universe of me. And you do have those people who kind of take this one thing they know about you and make that the only thing that you are. And then there's those folks who are looking for ways to invalidate you. And they say,
Mhm.
well, because you do this, even if you do this real well, it's like, well, yeah, you do that neo soul, that sandals and sage shit real dope. But that but that don't rock a club, but you can't get that shit off in the club. And I was like,
Right.
well, I can, in part because I know how to fucking DJ. Now,
Right.
when I'm at the club, come through and check this shit out. So, like, you have to, and we talk about this out, like, you kind of have to talk to people in a language that they understand, even if it's not your primary language, because people have to understand when they come at you with that energy, even if you don't, no pun intended, but when they come at you with that energy, even if you don't like engage it in the sense of like feeling where they're coming from, like like somebody's coming at you sideways, and you have an option to how you respond or if you respond. But a lot of times people need to be spoken to in a language that they understand, and not just so they understand what you're saying, but they also, as EnerJi said, can feel like you came at me with some fuck shit. I in turn responded to your fuck shit, and now you have to sit and stink and stew in the fuck shit that you brought to this situation. And
Absolutely, amen.
hopefully you don't enjoy it enough to not do that shit to somebody else. But sometimes you just got to approach people in a way that lets them know, A, you're out of line. B, you owe me a bit more respect because I'm very good at what I do. That's why I'm the one
Yeah,
here doing it and not you or anybody else. And all of those things that I find, once again, as I said at the top, sometimes all get packaged into microaggression. Sometimes it's just a microaggression, and sometimes it's that passive aggressive. Some people call it being a hater, whatever. That's all packaged into how people engage you, and sometimes they try to make it sly and slick. But as we've said, 9 times out of 10, you can feel that it's not right. How you respond to it is kind of up to us. But I absolutely think that people find ways to put you in the box that is comfortable for them to decide how to engage you based on what's comfortable for them and not who you are or how you are.
yeah,
Real quick,
absolutely.
EnerJi, I know I want to hear your thoughts on it as well. But shouts out to Dom Lawson. He said sandals and sage, and he gives a. If you say, I'm telling you, man, everybody be looking like, okay, they go Music Soul Child walking in setting up some equipment. But nevertheless, go ahead, EnerJi.
You were talking about just people making assumptions based on social media, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I just wanted, that was like a question that popped up in my head because I was thinking about social media and how that plays a role, in my opinion.
I don't know. I maybe before, but in this current iteration of myself, I've been very intentional with being very vague on my social media. There's not a whole lot on my social media that is me, and that's very intentional because I want it to be this one-dimensional thing, or at least one showing one aspect of it, and that is, DJing. And even in that, you're not going to go to my page and find a whole lot of pictures of myself. Like, no shade to anybody that does that, it's fine. But everything that's on my social media is either information about where I'm going to be, recaps of stuff that I've done, links to mixes and music, or stuff that's coming up in the future. So I don't know what assumptions could be made about that. I mean, I think that the assumptions for me come in when I actually show up, just because of who I am, what I look like, and maybe that's not somebody's typical definition of what a DJ would look like. But very much to what Krate said, it's like, I know why I'm supposed to be here. I'm the professional. I know what I'm doing. You need to sit back, relax, and let me do what the hell I'm doing, and really just kind of leave me alone and let me do that. It's part of the reasons why I have my infamous sign that says I do not take requests. And I mean that. And there are a lot of people that look at that as a microaggression. I think it's extremely aggressive because I want people to understand and the boundaries that I've set up for myself. I need people to let me do what it is that I'm going to do. I'm not the type of DJ that wants or needs anybody to make requests for me, because that is something that I find extremely distracting. It's not on some ego shit. It's just, I know what I'm here to do. I have a plan, and I need people to let me do that. Something that came up that I wanted to say, just thinking about this conversation that we've had so far, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like assumptions are normal. People are going to make them. We all make them. I feel like microaggressions are activated assumptions. You know what I'm saying? When you put feet or words behind the assumptions that you make, and then in your mind have them as gospel, and then assume and project your own perspective onto a situation or a person. So, I just wanted to put that out there.
No, mad respects, mad respects. So,
I think on that, if I could just add this, I think
yeah,
along
go
with what
for it.
EnerJi's just concluded with is important. My opinion is a lot of the microaggressions that we each engage or receive aren't about us. Like to the point that you was making
Correct.
about assumptions and activated assumptions, it's not about me. It's not something that was directed at me. It's something that people see or understand about me or around me or that I may represent that comes from other spaces. Quick example, for really until, well, actually, I won't even put a time frame on it, but generally speaking, DJs are seen behind the turntables, behind the decks, and they may be heard on the mic partying, but a lot of times you don't see DJs actually having conversations, whether it's talking about DJing, whether it's doing TED Talks, or all these different things that DJs have been doing for a long time. Generally speaking, you don't see that aspect of DJs. So when you see DJs, a lot of people just assume that we don't know how to have conversations or we don't know how to talk. They may think we're amazing with music, but they don't understand us in an air quotes academic nature. So when you have, for example, panels like this where you have DJs sitting down having a conversation and talking, for some people this may blow their mind, because once again their assumption is based not on any one of us, but just how they have approached in their perspective of what DJs are.
We
And
smart over
their
here. We
engagement.
smart over here.
Yeah. So like that's another example that I'm sure that we've all had throughout, our careers, where you have a conversation with somebody, and while they may not hit you with the quote unquote "you're so articulate," it's basically like that type of reference. But because you're a DJ, I assume that you just know how to yell on the mic and party and play music. I didn't know that you were actually smart, or actually may be a music historian, or actually may be a college professor, or all these other things that DJs are around the world. We're just seen as people who play music and may be able to rap or talk slick on the mic or whatever. Anything outside of that box will blow people's minds, because we're just expected to just be that thing that way.
So real quick before we move into like the last two questions or whatever, feel free to my people that's watching, feel free to, if you got questions or thoughts, definitely put them in the chat. EnerJi just hit me up and I was like, damn, I didn't pay attention to it, so my apologies. You could definitely chat with the folks. So so Krate, you could talk to the folks as well. But nevertheless, my people, let us know in the chat what you think about what we're talking about. And yeah, just let us know your thoughts. So damn, I forgot my thought that quick. Oh, articulate. So I felt like, when you write research papers, man, you feel like you're saying like the same word every damn paragraph, but articulate, to like drive my points home on a lot of these things, articulate was used a lot, because that's one of the main things that people look at it. They'd be like, okay, yeah, you're so articulate. Like, I didn't think that you spoke so well and all this other stuff. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, when they like, I think that's, I would never go to somebody and just be like, even if I thought they talk, nah, I ain't even gonna put that way like that. Cause I don't go to nobody and be like, oh, well, he speaks very well for a disabled person or for a woman.
It just assumes it assumes the baseline is, I expected you to be a dummy. You're not a dummy, and I'm surprised. Congratulations to you. Like what kind of fucking backhanded?
Exactly. And then it's the congratulations. Like, you're supposed to be thankful or grateful about this awful assumption that you've made about me. Like, what the fuck?
Right.
Exactly.
Even when somebody says, oh, I didn't think that you, depending on how it's presented, it's like, oh, I didn't think that you was interested in this. And it's like, you're really coming at me just from one angle, and you're not even thinking about the fact that I can do like 5 other things. And even with that, when you think about a DJ, that us DJs, we look at other DJs, regardless if you're in a club or a lounge or whatever. And I'm talking about specifically with DJing, and I'm like, you're looking at the other DJ like they have a level of some, a level of power that we can kind of identify with. It don't matter if they play straight trap music with all this other stuff. We have a power to like do multiple things inside and outside of being DJing. So for somebody to say articulate to a DJ, it's like, it's such a loser type of thing to say.
That's putting it nicely.
Absolutely crazy.
That is putting it very nicely. I love your diplomacy there, Pete. That was nice.
Yeah, I mean, hey, where's the applause at? Hold on. Listen. All right, let me get into these 2 questions real quick. So we did hint on this a little bit, but some reasons why people don't act on microaggressions. We might have said one or two things, but I kind of want to go around and get a specific answer or whatever y'all feel like why it is. And I'll start. Well, I'll start with it first, but I feel like a lot of people don't do it because of the repercussions behind it. Like, people automatically think if I say something, then somebody's going to take something away from me. You know what I'm saying? Especially from the workplace. It's like it will prevent you from promotions, or even they might just be like, look, you know, slightly off diplomacy, but I remember being at a job and they told me they had to remind me that this was an at-will job. And I was like, wow. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I was just like, Dad, that's pretty bold. And so with that, I didn't say anything else. And this is years ago. But nevertheless, I do feel like people don't do it because of the retaliation that could come with it. So that's my example. So I would like to hear y'all examples or why y'all think people don't speak up on it.
I mean, I think it's exactly that, especially when you're talking about, being in the workplace, like your 9 to 5, your bread and butter. There's always that concern about retaliation. There's the concern about, being treated differently, being gaslit, being put in an uncomfortable situation, anything that could compromise the reason that you're there, which is your income. And a lot of times that's the place where I am most diplomatic and most cautious. I've always been that way, just because you know how it is to navigate the sphere, especially when you're in a corporate space. It's you have to play the game. Well, you don't have to, but if you're going to engage, you have to choose to play the game, and then you have to know where your boundaries and your deal breakers are when it comes to that. In general and in life, like I said earlier, for me, it really comes down to a situation of, do I want to deal with this right now? Do I want to deal with this today? I have to weigh the pros and the cons. I have to decide, all right, is this worth a bigger conversation right now? Or can I just let this person go off and be the dumbass that they are? Is it going to change my life? Is it going to make a situation better? Is this a teachable moment? Do I want to be a teacher right now? Sometimes I just want to show up in my life and be here and not be bothered. So it really just comes down to whether or not I want to deal with it in that moment in the situation for me, outside of a professional working sphere. And even within a professional sphere, I mean, I feel like there are ways to deal with it. You have to navigate it very carefully. Um, it's almost like you have to choose your battles. You have to decide, is this something that is worth bringing up and possibly taking a risk of losing A, B, or C? And if it is, am I willing to take that risk? Am I ready for whatever outcomes, are a result of that? And then you take it from there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
absolutely agree. All the things mentioned, previously, specifically the energy and the engagement it requires of me to engage someone. Sometimes I just know, off rip, like if I go down this, if I open the door to go down this road to respond, it's not going to go well because I know me. I am not going to be diplomatic with this. And also, aside from that, like a lot of us know, like there's some people who, I'm just going to say it and take whatever blowback. There's some people who believe the world is flat. I haven't been to space, but I've seen too many pictures to believe the world is flat for several reasons. But there's some people who believe that, and there's nothing you can say, nothing you can show them. Like there's no quote unquote proof or evidence good enough to change their minds on that. What's the
Mhm.
point of having any conversation about it?
Correct.
Similar to to,
Mhm.
to 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 the microaggressions. There's some people who are just, well, that's not what I meant. That's not what I intended. There can never be any way that anything that I did can be misconstrued beyond me being a beautiful, perfect person, et cetera, et cetera. So nothing you can tell me, nothing you can show me, no amount of research, nothing is going to change my view to that. So I just like, yo. And then lastly, quite honestly, there's some people I just don't respect, whether I know them personally or just in the situation. There's some people I don't have enough respect for. And maybe that's not an okay thing to feel or think. But there's some people who I just be like, this lady who I'm just coming across because she's part of whatever as I'm preparing to do this show, and she's just a lady at the front door who I got to deal with just to get in. Like, I don't have enough consideration for her to have a conversation about certain things.
Right.
I don't have to be rude to her. I don't have to be disrespectful, but you're not important enough for me to have to engage, in part to what EnerJi said, to engage my energy in this thing right now. There's the return on that investment is very minimal versus
Right.
what I have to put into it.
Gotcha. Very understood on that. I'm learning from that as well. I mean, directly and indirectly, y'all too. And when I have my conversations with y'all, I have to zero in sometimes to be like, okay, let me understand that I shouldn't put my energy towards this. No pun intended. Energy is being thrown around a lot, so I have to, I have conversations with y'all, and I'm like, all right, let me take this down to filter. Like, should I worry about this, or should I just let it fly, or is it gonna be be whatever, you know what I'm saying? So I've learned how to go down that hole again, that type of thinking process, because y'all know me. Go ahead.
Yeah, to that point, like, every now and then we call Al Pete Ambassador Beat, because he is definitely the one to bring optimism to almost any situation. However, sometimes me and Pete have these conversations and we come away from him, he's like, all right, I understand that, like, metaphorically speaking, all right, this is war, so I'm going to approach it. I'm going to have to deal with this thing, but I'm going to approach it from a space of I'm a warrior going into battle, and not I'm the ambassador coming here to find a middle ground and make peace. I'm not the ambassador coming to the warrior trying to meet in the middle. I'm on a warrior meeting a warrior. We're going to have to go into battle, and having that mindset up front helps prepare for whatever this engagement will be, versus trying to come at it from a space where you're on one end of the spectrum and somebody else is on the other end. So yeah, brother, I also appreciate your positivity and the what's the word? I don't know.
Being a cornball and not stand up for myself.
We appreciate you being a pushover for the culture.
Oh no.
But on the real, like, I tell Al all the time, is like, I appreciate his energy because it is a balance, because I am very much, I don't want to quite say I'm cynical, but I'm just like very brass tack with a lot of things. And I just approach it with like, all right, well, you said some fuck shit to me, I'm gonna say some fuck shit back. And like, even if I'm not offended, like, I'm like, this is the, like, it's like football. Like, if the game is played on the turf and you got a helmet and shoulder pads, because that's the game, even if I don't enjoy the game or love the game, I'm not going out there without my helmet and my shoulder pads, because that's part of the game. And right. Then if we're gonna play the game, we're gonna play the game on even footing. You're not gonna trick me into playing some game where I don't have all the protections and know the rules and can't do the same shit you doing. That's just how I look at it. Not always the best way to approach everything. So thank you, Brother Al, for talking me off the cliff from time to time, but
it was a comment that said, when your peace of mind versus others' ignorance.
Yes, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not always worth the battle. It really isn't. Because very much to the point that Krate made, there's oftentimes you're not going to change anybody's worldview or perspective or the way they feel about a situation. So why bother? It's like you're not doing anything really. You got on my nerves. You're annoying me. I can just not be around you, and the situation is solved. Really.
I got you. So last question before we wrap up. We'll go around the table again. But what are some ways to prevent microaggression? I know we've hinted on that throughout the conversation, but let's kind of give one bullet point of how we can prevent it. And that's from, I mean, whichever way y'all want to say it, if it's from the aggressor way or whatnot.
I don't know that they can be prevented. I think that they can be addressed. I think as far as preventing microaggressions, you can prevent future microaggressions if you decide that a situation is worth addressing and talk to the person who might have, launched the aggression against you and try to circumvent from having anything like that happen again. But as far as an initial microaggression, I don't know that they can be avoided just because of the very nature of how they work. I don't know if you agree with that or not. I'm curious to know what Krate thinks about it.
I agree. And I guess the only kind of divergence is the only person I really have any control over is myself. So the only way that I can prevent microaggressions is to be careful about what I say, how I say it. And even though it's a fault of mine at times, I find myself being overly communicative because I want to be clear on what I'm trying to say and be understood when I say things. So the only way I can prevent them, in my opinion, is to be as on it as possible about not committing them. But even with that being said, I'm sure that there's ways that I commit them. And when people call me on them, excuse me, I have to be best about receiving that critique and being better. But once again, I can only really control myself. So the less microaggressions that I put out in the world is, theoretically a better world that we're all, living and engaging in.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I do. And when you're thinking of it from that perspective, I completely agree. Check yourself first always. That's something that I do. I really, really try to, always check myself and think about the things that I say, because we can't do anything about the, invasive thoughts that come up in our head. We can't do anything about the assumptions that we make, but we can control what we choose to share, how we choose to share it, what we choose to say, and how we choose to say it to people. And I agree with Crate with that 100%. Like, the more good you put out, I believe in the law of attraction. You hope that you don't get that back to you, but when it happens, you can deal with it accordingly. But he's absolutely right, and I agree 100%. Like, check yourself first, because we all are susceptible to making these assumptions and presumptions. It's what we do with it that matters.
Gotcha. So real quick, before we do the bit of dues and stuff, on my paper it has how to prevent microaggressions, and this is specifically like in a work setting or whatnot. And I I don't think that this what I'm about to say would kind of apply to us DJs. Well, I guess it could to a certain degree, but three main points that I kind of pointed out was education tools or resources. And this is again, I'm coming from a setting like a corporate setting, so having resources for people to kind of read and be like how to identify with these things, having um, what is it, like those meetings that people go to where they have like a workshop, stuff like that. The second point I had was informing the perpetrator, which addressing it as Energy stated, and then third, which I thought was pretty cool, was becoming an ally. So if you see somebody doing it, or if you see somebody going through that act, um, being an ally and kind of stepping up for that person, or if you have a better way, a method of saying it, or articulate, then if you have a better way of doing that, then step in that role and doing that. And in my paper, which I plan on publishing, well, not publishing. Well, yeah, it's publishing because it's gonna be on my website. But
Come on,
I'm
publish. You better be
yeah,
published. Come on.
yeah. Well, I publish on MPN, but I mean, at some point, I'm gonna
Hey,
get these things in some
publish is publish. Let me borrow a dollar.
Publish is published. Thank
publish is
you.
published, yes, yes. So, but I want people to kind of read it and see to kind of tie it into the conversation that we're having. But they did get some good points about becoming an ally, and we we hear that word a lot, the ally action, being the fact, when it comes to race, when it comes to the racial aspect of it. But there are other ways of being an ally outside of being race. So yeah. So with that being said, we are closing this out. Round of applause. Let me give y'all this corny round of applause real quick again. But listen, I appreciate EnerJi and Krate Digga for being on this with me. Shouts out to everybody that was in the chat. I appreciate everybody. Shouts out to a lot of people. Shouts out to everybody. But I see Dom in there, but like my C4 crew. Shouts out to EnerJi, man. I'm excited about therapy, not therapy. I just posted a flyer for summertime in the city for the
Yes, I'm so
the MPN
excited.
podcast. So I am so excited to see therapy, not therapy in action, man, because I love them, man, and I love everything that y'all do individually, man. So thank y'all so much for taking time to talk with me about my papers and stuff that I write.
Yeah, appreciate the invitation, brother.
Of
Yeah.
course.
So before we get out of here, EnerJi and Krate, let them know let us know what you got coming up, and of course, let people know where they can find you at.
Ladies
Krate, go
first, of
ahead.
course. Okay,
All
okay.
right. Well, you can
Um,
find me on all socials
what is
at
it? Yeah,
IAMENERJI. Uh, that's I'm mostly on Instagram, but I'm also on Twitter. If you're interested in hearing my crazy ass thoughts, that's happening. And then my next,
Twitter gang,
my
Twitter
next
gang.
spin, my next spin is gonna be at Malanga. We're gonna be at Underbelly. That's me, Mass Appeal, DJ Omi. I want to say that's July 15th. Don't get me to lying. I'm gonna have to look at my phone. Give me 2 seconds.
Is it that Saturday?
It's a Friday.
Oh, so that's the 14th, I believe.
14th. Thank you.
Yeah.
See, I just lied. So yeah, we'll be at Underbelly for Malanga on July 14th. That's going to be deep rooted beats. I'm very, very excited about that. Anybody that knows me and has experienced my DJing knows that I have a deep, deep love for Afro house and just Afrobeat in general. So we're going to be going really deep with the beats, and I cannot wait to rock that sound system. You can also catch me at the Comer. I'm going to be at Summer at the Comer. That's going to be the Friday after that on July 21st.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I think those are my only spins. I've stepped back a little bit for the summer, and we're taking some time for self care and self health and wellness and all that kind of stuff. But in the meantime, like I said, you can find me on socials at IAMENERJI. I'll also be with Mr. Alpete at Summertime in the City, and that's going to be the 29th,
Ninth. Yep.
correct,
29th.
of July. 29th. So July is going to be a busy month. So yeah, catch me there.
Indeed. Krate, what you got? Where we can find you at? What you got
yeah,
going
yeah.
on,
So
sir?
this Saturday, the 1st of July, I'll be rocking at Bluestone here in Columbus, Ohio for the Color of Summer after party. And then, I have a couple of private events throughout July. I'll be in Baltimore, or excuse me, Annapolis. I want to say the 15th, I believe, is the third Saturday third Saturday. I'll be in Annapolis. If you're in the know, you'll know about that event. I have a couple of more other private bookings throughout the month. But with that being said, I tell people all the time 24/7, 365. You can catch me on kratedigga.com, KrateDigga.com. We have music, we have visuals, tutorials, documentaries, and more. If I happen to do a pop up live stream, I am pushing all the live streams. They simulcast on the website as well. But I am similar to EnerJi in the sense that I have an amazing repertoire on Twitter. It's not current. I haven't been on Twitter actively since before the election last year, but my Twitter vault is strong. So if anything I said today makes you think that I may have something interesting to say, whether it be irreverent or insightful, I'm sure it's there somewhere on Twitter. I go back to I want to say 07, 08 on Twitter. I'm a Twitter old head, so there's plenty of
Oh
stuff on
wow,
there if you
that's
want to.
deep.
Yeah, if you want to dig in the microfiche and the card catalog of my
I'm
Twitter, it's
tired. Not the microfiche.
Hey, listen, Krate. Hey, don't get it twisted, y'all. Krate is a comedian. Like he is a comedian. He don't want to admit to it, but go to the Clip Visions episode where we talk about Waffle House. Krate is like shuts it down completely, completely. So
I'm not a comedian. I'm a DJ who knows how to tell jokes. I'll meet you on the middle on that one.
I'll take that. I'll take that. So, but nevertheless, thank you so much to both of them. Hold on, y'all. I'm gonna close it out. Don't hang up. Don't hang up. Don't hang up. Don't hang up. Oh, it's an amazing talk. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with us. I love it. Okay, we got somebody tuned in. Air clap, air clap. All right, I'll be right back, y'all. Don't go nowhere now. All right, there we go. So thank y'all so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, this is microaggressions in the workplace. Like I said, I'll publish my paper on my site, mrlp.com, so you can read it, so you can kind of parallel with the things that I was saying. I do have a slideshow as well that I had presented in my class, so I'll post that on there as well. Make sure you follow us going forward, MPN Network, for all things. But thank y'all so much. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter, MPN Management. Make sure you follow me as well, Mr. Al Pete, all that great stuff. So, in the old Negro words of Wayne Peterson, to the top. Thank y'all.